It is Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 62nd episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything that's important to us, to you, the world, and nothing is off the table. In this episode, we're talking all about something very deep, guys. We're talking all about whether all cultures respect themselves. But before we dive deep into this subject, I have a couple of questions for you. First, have you subscribed to WokeNFree on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, yep, Toby, and all the other platforms that we're on? If not, go to WokeNFree.com, Toby says so, and you will find all the different platforms that our show is on. Second, share an episode because Kitty also said to do so, and you can share it with friends and family. I think this will be a phenomenal episode to share. Then have you hollered at us on social media? If not, and you want to chat, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WokeNFree. And then lastly, we'd love reviews of the show. You can review us on Facebook. You can review us on any of the platforms that we're on. Just go to WokeNFree.com. You'll find where the show is on and all of our different social media handles.
Each week we like to share a little bit about us before we dive into the topic for the episode. Last week we shared favorite things that our cats do. This week we're sharing what's one type of clothing we would never wear.
I think Toby has something to say on the matter. He's quite frisky, this one. But for me, I guess I would say something I would never wear is probably anything real fur, just because there's like actual animals that go into making that, and that just seems really sad. But how about you?
My thing would be pink capri pants.
I can't even say it.
I know, it's just
That's how
terrible.
Disturbed you are by them, right? Capri.
Yeah. Well, if I say the word, then it might appear, so you gotta
On
be
your
very
behind,
careful.
yeah, excellent.
I don't want to know. Those are the worst.
Are we doing an episode on manifestations of reality?
Exactly. That's why I can't even say the words. Very smart. But that's the worst.
Why capri though? Why that cut of jean or pants?
I believe it's a fashion faux pas. That's why.
You're a hater right now.
No, it
and
really
I encourage
is.
you to be a creator.
Because you know what it's like? It's kind of like, it's just a version of high water pants.
Ouch, Khalil.
That's what it is. And that there's a reason why it went out of style. There's
and came back in.
I don't think it's ever going to be back in style after that one-hit wonder that it did.
Oh, gosh.
And you know I'm right, too. You don't see anybody wearing that no more.
No, that's not true. But we will keep it moving. So let's get to something a bit more deeper in substance and thought here. And that is, how does a culture respect themselves?
I would say it's easy. Don't portray yourself in media only in comedic roles. That's
what it comes down to?
Yeah.
Have less of a sense of humor.
Well, if you have a sense of humor, you got to have more than that. You got to have a sense of action, too. You can't just only do comedic roles. Like, if your culture's only doing, like, just funny stuff, I think that's an issue. You should be doing, like, scientific things and things that are smart, not just always
diversity,
making people laugh. You should be doing, like, you can do documentaries and stuff. I mean, just do something
media,
different.
You think the biggest issue is media?
Yeah, I think that's where we really see the issue at a lot in media. I think that's where the biggest portrayal happens. I mean, we see it in we see it on the news too. News, we'll see it in news because sometimes the newscasters, they go for those people who aren't quite, that up to par with doing culturally correct things.
Being delivered or scripted by the cultures that they're reporting on typically. So
yeah, they choose like the worst people. They're like, I'm gonna always choose this person off the street compared to that person who looks like they know what's happening. Like they do some funny things when they interview people. I think it's funny their choices sometimes. So I just think that be less of a comedian and be more of a scientist is what I would say for cultures.
Gotcha. So according to NIH, which you will find all research on WokeNFree.com, Culture is often described as the combination of a body of knowledge, a body of belief, and a body of behavior. It involves a number of elements, including personal identification, language, thoughts, communications, actions, customs, beliefs, values, and institutions that are often specific to ethnic, racial, religious, geographic, or social groups. It's quite a definition.
That's a lot.
And for the provider of health information or healthcare, these elements influence beliefs and belief systems surrounding health, healing, wellness, illness, disease, and delivery of health services. The concept of cultural respect has a positive effect on patient care, it talks about, and kind of the interactions of their health beliefs and other kinds of the definition goes on and on.
You talk about health.
Yeah, but I think for me, I would say the biggest thing when it comes down to for cultural disrespect and respect is really about like the stance that the culture takes. So you either want to uplift yourselves or you don't, and when you don't or you don't have a cultural stance on it, you see mixed messages in
Mixed,
media.
really? Oh.
You see people who are the Obamas, you see the Oprahs, you see Ava DuVernay, right? You see Issa Rae, you see people, Michael B. Jordan, you see people who are really taking a culture and taking it further and further each and every opportunity they get. And then you also will hear, songs that suggest we should beep, sleep, and drink, right? Like where you have kind of mixed messaging between people in an industry, people in different industries, but of the same race or culture, and it becomes conflicting. And so maybe it's because there's not a common media representation, maybe there's a lack of commonality amongst people in the culture, whatever the reason is. I would definitely attribute media is one piece of it, but also education, right? When you aren't taught a full perspective of your history, then it becomes difficult. Well, it's difficult to understand the significance of things. Like we'll get into it, but even for derogatory terms, do people even know? Do modern day kids fully know the history? Because maybe it's easier to use a term that isn't proper if you don't know the history of it, right?
Yeah, that's true. You make a good point. Then what are examples of a culture not respecting themselves?
So definitely I think I can speak, at least I'm a part of being a woman. I'm a part of the gender being female. I'm born in America as a black person, so I can speak from the black perspective because I'm not a part of other cultures other than of Caribbean descent. And I would say the biggest issues in my community or our culture is the use of things like the N-word, or using other derogatory terms, and or using like really negative stereotypes about black people amongst each other, right? Not even just hearing it from other people, but like, you're so lazy, you're a lazy this, right? Or you only eat this, like horrible things that are said amongst people that share my narrative. And I think that is beyond disrespectful. I think it's a flagrant cry for help. Yeah. Because if we as people, and I mean people, regardless of your race and culture, if you cannot respect your community, then you can never expect someone else to respect your community. So when you look within the black community, when you look within your gender or other intersectionality, you have to say, what are we doing, and what is the role that I play in uplifting my community? And if we're not, then do we not want to? And then if we don't, then don't get mad when someone calls you the N-word. Don't get mad when someone denies you an opportunity because of racism or because of other points of how you identify yourself, because you either uplift or you don't.
But the problem is other cultures do this to themselves too. Like if you go into each culture, all of them have certain things that they say to each other that are very derogatory, and if any other culture said it, that's going to piss them off. Italians have it, Irish have it.
Every culture has bias. They all have like derogatory terms.
Yes, they all have it.
But do all cultures equally disrespect each other the same?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because if if you go to music, you'll see that like the hip hop culture,
one is more
definitely
pervasive over the other.
definitely says things that are derogatory towards the people
which
who
is
started
mostly
it.
black people saying it against other black people.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting that it's all in our media, because you don't get that in the other cultures.
I don't
like,
hear.
You don't listen to rock and then you're hearing all these bad terms spit out specifically against the culture.
When I
but
hear
in hip hop, you
Latin,
do get that.
Spanish music.
No, you don't get that.
I don't. I mean, granted, we don't speak Spanish fluently, so maybe in reggaeton, I don't know if they say things like how we will speak to each other.
Oh, like Papi Chulo?
I don't know what that means. Yeah. So,
okay.
But I don't think it's the equivalent of N-word.
No. Very few words reach that status, which is interesting how it's so pervasive in music as it is now. And
common day language, like "Hey, my boop," And
you can hear it on the subway too. You hear
and now
people
other
saying this
people
stuff
who are not of African American descent are using it against us, with each other. It's become a pervasive, like, level of people disrespect, because it's like, at what
it's a very interesting word. How it's like transformed to this day, and how people can use it and who shouldn't. Like it's a very interesting subject, and why people have to continue to say it and feel that they've taken the power over it or whatever. Very interesting, guys. That's what I say about that.
Well, okay, that begs the question: Is there a historical reason for, like, for instance, why people are using the N-word or essentially effectuating other forms of cultural disrespect?
Disrespect is something that's definitely shown from our society, and then our media and environment also showing people disrespecting each other. That's going to actually affect children and young adults. So I think that the culture of disrespecting ourselves, it's built up over time, but in general, I mean, just look at America, our society. If you go 153 years back, slavery was actually legal. And during those times, slaves were looked down upon. Like, of course they were. And this is when some of these disrespectful things of, like, that came about. Like, the N-word and so forth. That's what it's rooted in. Like, if we really look back, that's where it started out. And oftentimes the slaves are using it against each other. It wasn't just the slave owners, but the slaves themselves. It was kind of like ingrained as a way to, like, put down somebody. It wasn't just a word for them. It was definitely meant for abuse and to try to belittle somebody. So I think the remnants of that kind of, like, persist to this day of using that word. I know people could say it's used as endearment, but oftentimes they use it in disrespect as well, or in anger.
Definitely. For me, I would say it's interesting. Growing up, my first experience actually with the N-word, I think I've shared with the WokeNFree family, was when I was 6 years old. I was living in the Osai diverse Manhattan. Ha ha. Yeah, right. And I mean, I guess it's diverse.
It's a melting pot.
Yeah. Yep. But, racism still is pervasive throughout that pot, and it spills quite over. And I was called that by a piano teacher. I was 6 years old. I didn't even realize I was black, and I definitely had never heard that word before. But that was my entree into my blackness, my black identity. That's a very traumatic way to begin. And since then, I don't think that word and I have had good, relations. I think it's interesting that you said that people use it in anger and stuff like that. Because, I would say that I've heard that word be used when people are angry or frustrated with someone of black descent and stuff like that.
Even not of, though.
That's true. I've heard it in jovial kind of circumstances. It's a very complex word. In fact, there is actually an article on tolerance.org, a 2011 article, where managing editor at the time, Sean Price's interview with Arizona State University professor Neil Lester. He had taught twice courses at that school, at Arizona State, on the N-word, which is pretty interesting. And I thought this part of the article was something to definitely talk about. So in the article, it says, what were things that the students confessed to the professor when they were talking about the N-word? And the student said, in their circle of white friends, some are so comfortable with the N-word because they've grown up on and been nourished by hip-hop. Much of the commercial hip-hop culture by black males uses the N-word as a staple. white youth, statistically the largest consumers of hip hop,
Yeah.
then feel that they can use the word amongst themselves with black and white peers. But then I hear in that same discussion that many of the black youths are indeed offended by whites using the N-word. And if blacks and whites are together with a white person who uses the word, many blacks are ready to fight. So this word comes laden with these complicated and contradictory emotional responses to it. And it's very confusing to folks on the outside, particularly when nobody has really talked about the history of the word in terms of American history, language, performance, and identity. And I think the real crux, as you kind of mentioned, is the irony, right? So something cannot be bad and good at the same time. It's either bad or it's good. And I think that the juxtaposed position that we as people of color take, it has to be, we ban it or we use it. It's not, you can't.
It's gotta be clear.
Yeah. So that's why other people are confused and oblivious to the whole situation, because we're not clear on where we stand with the word.
Because it's kind of messed up to be like, because you're of this race.
Yeah. This
is offensive.
Idiotic.
Because just think about it. Let's say you're in a room and the lights are off. Someone yells the N-word.
Yeah.
Lights come on. And there's a mixed group of people in there. Are you angry or are you happy? Like,
exactly.
What do you feel in that moment? Because you're like, oh wait, who said it? Like, are you really getting caught up on who said it?
I'm endeared if that white person
like, oh, did you say it? Did you say it?
But I'm very happy. Yeah, like it's so weird.
That if you can't be endeared if like a black person said it, but then a white person said it. Now we gotta fight, man, because. I just say, you gotta figure out what you want. Like, if you don't want people to say it, then you need to stop saying it too, because it's just offensive to all. It can't just be offensive by some. Like, that's just a.
And also, to me, it just seems illogical that like we as people feel that we need to convert the word or take it back. Like, we didn't create it, and we didn't create the institution of slavery, so I'm not sure why. I mean, I guess technically we did, but in America, we didn't create this slavery that applied to our ancestors here. Yeah. And so why are we trying to hold on to anything that's reminiscent of that time and that like long history of torture and torment for our people?
Yeah, we should just let that go.
Like, just let it go and let it die like the rest of our slaves who died in that horrible time period. Like, let's let it go. Like, why are we holding on to this? There's no need to convert anything.
It might be there must be a deeper meaning in it, meaning we truly haven't healed from it.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe
why is it still
it's
talked
a cry
about?
for help that we're not understanding how to move past this moment. And I get it, because it really wasn't, I know everyone's like, 400 years ago, but there are people currently walking around today who can point to relatives who were slaves. Their grandmothers,
remember,
like, that's
slavery,
nuts.
slavery was just made illegal. It was only 153 years ago.
So that's like 3 or 4
where it was actually illegal.
Yeah.
Where it was illegal. So just think about that.
Yeah, so that's
not that long ago.
Grandparents and great-grandparents.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Back to. And that's crazy. Like, that's really nuts, actually. So because it's so fresh, but maybe we need, hopefully, like, conversations like this help start this narrative for people.
There's got to be, like, a big discussion where we just come to a conclusion. Are we going to continue this going, or are we going to just say, you know what, it's an old word, it's kind of antiquated. Yeah. Maybe we'll just stop using it because it's not even cool. It's
exactly.
Just like, whatever.
There's other antiquated words we've stopped saying, and we don't talk the same way that we used to. We can let this one go, guys.
But what I say is, just don't do the thing where I think Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton wanted to ban the word. Don't go on those like terms, because if you do that, people are going to go and they're going to rebel. Like, why are you saying I can't? No, just make it a thing where who cares? Like, we're not going to say it. We don't really care.
We just take the stance that we're not interested in using the word against us or others. It doesn't, you can't ban, you can try to ban words, but the humans have a horrible habit of whenever we're told no, all we want to do then is do that activity. So
what words are banned in the U.S.? You can't ban words.
There are anti-Semitic words that are not, like, it's
not banned, though.
It's not banned, but you will be punished for saying those words.
You're saying that, but I guarantee you some of those words were said on Family Guy.
That's a whole different episode. I am not biting into that apple filled of all I'm saying is that
there are no banned words. They're true, not in the U.S. Go to a different country, then you could lose a finger for that. But in the U.S., there's technically no banned words. There's some words that if you say against certain people, yes, you'll get in trouble, but that's pretty much as far as you can go.
All right. Well, what are changes you would like to see when it comes to this conversation of cultural disrespect?
Yeah, the main thing is don't say things that you don't want others to say about yourself. That's doesn't make sense to me. If you're offended when another culture makes the same remark as you, maybe you should think before you make that remark. If they can't say it, why are you saying it? Like, that's...
Ouch.
You can't say this. Only I could say it. Yep. Then they just say it. Then what?
Yeah.
And then now we gotta... What's gonna happen now? Like, now we gotta fight? It doesn't make any sense.
Time to rumble.
Like, we are in the U.S. Where is this not the land of the free?
Built off the backs of slaves?
Well, are we working towards that?
I love that phrase, the land of the free.
For some people, yeah.
I mean, it's just irony. I don't know.
It's a great term.
It's such a horrible depiction of how this country began, because it did not begin off of free will of all.
No, definitely not.
So it's that's very interesting. But I would say, for me, the changes I want to see comes to this conversation we're having right now, and hopefully this sparks other people to have similar conversations. And let's have some articles. Let's have some public conversations, major conversations here, where, we're happy to chime in. WokeNFree is ready to join that conversation, a bigger conversation of what do we want? Like, for instance, I don't know if everyone remembers kind of the squabble that went down with, what's his name? He came after Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish. What's his name?
Yeah, you're talking about
What's his name? I forget what his name is. That's sad.
No, you don't forget his name.
Cat.
Yeah, Cat Williams.
Cat Williams, yes. So Cat Williams had an incident recently where you guys can look it up, and he was saying some very negative things about Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish, which again, black on black crime. Guys, why are we publicly defaming and saying other things about each other of the same community? Very unfortunate.
Because you didn't listen to the Black song by Buddy.
Not sure what you're referring to. But
look that one up, guys. A Black empowerment song, Black by Buddy.
Okay.
then you'll get some good feeling.
Also
in you right
read
there.
the autobiography of Malcolm X, right?
I think that's a lot. I'm just giving them 3 minutes of their life.
Gotcha.
I mean, once they're ready, they can step up their game.
They're ready to level up.
Yeah, but just start off with a quick song.
But the point was that in this Hot 97 extended Hot 97 interview with Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish to kind of respond to Cat Williams' negative vitriol for them, Kevin Hart really had a really interesting question posed, which is the one that I posed together. What do we want? Because he said it's so ironic that when he was coming up in the industry, he would constantly hear from the community that black people would complain that we didn't see enough of ourselves in media. We didn't see enough of ourselves succeeding in comedy. And then when you do have people like Kevin Hart, like Tiffany Haddish, who are winning, and we as people, human beings, but especially as people of color, should be celebrating their success, then we have someone like Cat Williams, who also has been very successful in his own right, come after them. And it's well, what do you want? Do you want people to succeed, or do you not want people to succeed? When people do succeed, do you want to champion them, or do you want to tear them down? What do you want? And so when he said that, and he said, listen, black people, what do you want? I think that every culture needs to kind of come to terms with that. What do you want? Do you want to have unity or not? Because if you don't want unity, then fine. We can be out here and we can be crazy, and when the aliens come, then when the aliens come, then we can find a way to unite, and in the meantime, we will attack ourselves over silly things like the color of our skin and how much we weigh and who's taller and who's wider and all this other stuff. But if we actually do want unity, if we actually do want some form of community, then we've got to set some ground rules for ourselves and work within these rules.
Well, do you think it's possible to actually change cultural disrespect?
if the intention is to change. If people don't, you can do anything in this world, but you have to have the intention for it. So I think that one of the biggest things I would like to see, and I think with things like when we have productions like Black Panther, and we have moments in history that unite a group globally, right? Like for instance, Black Panther, that was an awakening in the Black community globally, right? You could see people in Africa, people in Europe, people all over America truly brought to tears and excitement for the idea that we could have a mainly Black cast film have so much success and so much love. You know, then we can, when we come together, when we want to show out, we show out. But you know, do we want to actually eradicate things like discord amongst us over things like the N-word, over colorism, over homophobia, Islamophobia? Do people intend to actually eradicate these things? I don't think so right now. I don't think humans want to. I think people enjoy having boxes and having challenges because it allows people to perpetuate a victim personality for themselves, as well as also having something to just squabble over and kind of not deal with their lives, but deal with other things. But what do you think?
Are you sure? Or maybe there's other issues that come to the forefront before those issues.
I mean, there's institutionalized racism. There's a lot of factors that play a role.
But I'm saying in terms of like humanity, there's other issues that we have at hand. So maybe these things are thrown in the background, like poverty, like energy issues, like pollution, like water issues, like food.
That's true.
I'm
but
just
those
saying,
are external factors, don't you think? Like racism and cultural discord and disrespect, those seem like internal issues. And when you're trying to heal, doesn't it make sense to work from the inside out? So like poverty, and those are all external things. But like internally, how you feel about your race, how you feel about a community.
You're partially talking about mental like help as well, and mental health is not valued at all. So that's why that's thrown out the window. So again,
what do we want?
Because that could be lumped into that. There could be mental issues that are going on that are allowing us to even feel this way. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't explore that enough. So that's why I think I don't know. Really it seems like we try to attack the external stuff first. Like you hear a lot of talk about people being sick. You know, health. That's a huge issue. Yep. All those other issues I think come up first, and only now I would say now we're like dealing with kind of racism and people are being called out for racist things happening. But it's not really like I don't see any kind of effort to combat it. Like to actually like go on the offense. I think it's all like defense kind of stuff. I think people like, you know, like something will happen and it'll be like, oh, this happened because of race. Yeah. What should we do now to defend this? Instead of like, let's nip this in the bud and let's stop racism. There's never been a kind of attitude of that. There's never been any actions towards that.
You would be facing institutions that you might not be capable of conquering. You know, there's a lot that goes behind how racism is effectuated in a place, in a country like America. So to say, hey, I'm going to tackle racism, that means you're coming after banking, you're coming after law, you're coming after politics. I mean, there's racism in all our major institutions in media. Like, so how can you conquer that?
As an afterthought, there are a couple of politicians that do mention racism as an afterthought. Like, we're going to make sure all our citizens are treated fairly. Like, you know, they just, as an afterthought,
oh, yeah, because you want to placate the masses. It's like,
we got you. We're thinking about you. We know you're there.
You're ultimately, it's hard. Politics is hard because it is hard. They're going for the vote and then they're going for the issues, right? But first we need your vote. So
one of the hardest things in politics, and I was just listening on the radio, was just the problem is like going on these like campaigns and raising the funds. Like it's there's people who really do support the people and want to have our voices heard, but the problem is they don't have the funding, and it's hard for them to get the funding because the people that want to back them aren't the voice of the people. So I think that's a lot of the issue too, is that politicians they need money to go on these campaigns and say, hey, please elect me. This is what I'm doing. But we don't have like an even playing field. It's not like anybody who wants to be in politics and doesn't have the funding and the connections can do it. You need the connections and you need the funding, or else you're done. So I think that's an issue with politics too.
Dirty
you don't get to hear the voice of the people. You just hear the voice of who's most funded.
But like I said, for me, even if we took politics out of the picture, it's just like, could we actually have diverse media? Could we have diverse media representation? Could we actually have stories that were not slanted? against groups of people on an ongoing basis to create essentially a propaganda.
We can. What's great, and only now in this day and age, yes, we finally can.
Well, social media, yeah.
Social media, but even and nowadays, anybody can start their own streaming service, and they can start their own video service, and they can put up basically anything, because the internet is still a little bit of a wild, wild west where you have freedom to do what you want. At least in America, I'm not speaking for everybody else.
Yeah.
At least here, you can put up a website and you can say what you want on there. You know, you can go crazy.
But is it going to have the same impact as
that's
BET,
the issue.
as New
As
York
I know,
Times, as there's certain institutions that have already built that trust?
Yeah.
Because everything with building things, you're building trust, and that takes time. It doesn't build trust isn't built in a day. So it's
all right. So just give it about 300 years, and then you know, all these acceptable phrases used throughout our music will just be blasé by that point.
Blasé.
That's what I say. So 300 years, and you'll see it. And we'll revisit this in 300 years. Let's see where we're at.
I think you should share a song about 300 years from now. What does the world look like? And please include blasé in there. I mean, I just say, like I said, WokeNFree Nation, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Do you think it'll take less time? 300 years sounds to me horribly tragic. But maybe whatever the time is, as long as change is inevitable. So for me, I hope that it's more closer in my lifetime, just because it hurt. It hurt to experience how my Black narrative has been in this country. It hurts, and I would like that to be a better story for someone 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. And the idea of it still hurting for hundreds of years is heartbreaking. But let's see. Well, let's all encourage Khalil to share his thoughts in a new song.
If you say so.
Yes, indeed.
Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Scenario 1. Geraldo and Geneva went to a small Texas bar, Los Mujeres Loca, for the happy hour special. After an hour, the bar owner asked them how they liked the place in Spanish. Geraldo is not fluent in Spanish and took offense that the bar owner assumed he spoke it just based on his looks. Is this a form of disrespect or just miscommunication?
Oh, interesting question. I believe it's firstly disrespectful. You cannot assume someone speaks another language by looking at them. That's quite the presumption, and you know what people say about assumptions. It makes an ass out of you. So stop assuming. If you want to know if someone speaks Spanish, just simply ask them. And secondly, is it a form of miscommunication? Yes, but it's a disrespectful form of miscommunication, because the bar owner shouldn't have approached him like that.
You should just speak to him in English.
Yeah, you should just, it's
they're in Texas.
I mean, that's not Mexico, so it's
They're
not
close to the border.
See, but not everyone tú hablas español. Like, not everyone.
If you're in El Paso, is that the second language that you have to know?
You can't assume anything in life. It'd be the same thing as if we traveled to Africa and people assumed that wherever we went, say we went to Kenya, and that we spoke one of the languages that are spoke there. Like, that's not appropriate. You have to ask people where do you hail from? And what is your best language that we can communicate in? And then communicate in that language. You cannot just look and make judgment calls. It's the same way how certain houses in this country will make declarations about people. That's not true and deeply offensive. Not okay. Just because someone comes from an area doesn't make them a murderer, doesn't make them a killer, doesn't make them a criminal. ...
Yeah, the research doesn't show that. Survey says no. That's what I'd say about that.
Word.
Scenario 2. Maya was raised in the good old Bronx and has a very Bronx attitude. She often refers to her friends in what others would call a derogatory manner. While attending school, she called out to her friend using what most would find offensive, but is said in many current-day rap songs. Her teacher overheard her and decided to send her to detention. Was the teacher right, or should she be allowed to call her friends by whatever term she chooses?
Another interesting question. So, I would say that whether she understands that what she's doing is wrong or right, I think that people need to understand that when you are in other people's houses, you have to follow those people's rules. Unless,
even a school?
Yes, most definitely a school. That is a place of learning. This is supposed to be a safe haven for children. This is also supposed to be an environment of learning. And so she is being schooled on what is appropriate communication in that scenario, aka in life. And calling out to someone in a derogatory term just because you're comfortable with it doesn't mean that your other people around you are going to be comfortable with that, and you'll have your business told to you. So that's a lesson. She's not going to like that lesson, but that's a lesson that needs to be learned. And so I think the teacher was correct. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, she needs to learn. You can't just go speaking however you want, anywhere you want. You gotta have some sort of respect for others around you as well, because when she says that, the issue is you can offend others who don't really want to be hearing your Bronx attitude come out. Like, let's keep it
What do you
PC.
mean by Bronx attitude, Khalil? What are you implying?
Because Bronx is the boogie down, and they really,
Are you effectuating disrespect right
now? I'm not saying all people for the Bronx is a certain way, but there's a certain Bronx attitude that certain people from the Bronx pick up.
Please excuse him, WokeNFree Nation. I think he needs to be schooled right now. Who's from the boogie down Bronx? Who wants to school Khalil right now? The Bronx attitude. Oh my goodness.
But no other boroughs have this. That's what's funny. Only the Bronx has that.
The Bronx attitude?
Yeah, that they're the only ones who have that. There's no other people on the planet.
Did you Google this? Is this on Wikipedia?
I feel that it should be. If
Good
it's not,
for
it
you.
should be. I just have I have a sixth sense.
Maybe J-Lo can correct you.
I said certain people. I didn't say everybody. I said that I didn't even give you a percentage. I'm not going to tell you the percent of people.
There's
that
a lot of
do this.
successful people that come out of the boogie down Bronx. So.
But the Bronx is a small area too, though. It's a small place.
Yeah, and it's produced a lot of really interesting entertainment people.
The key word there is interesting.
Yeah, so is Queens, guy. So is Queens.
Touche. Scenario 3. Aziza tells Kwame that if you are part of a culture, there's nothing that you can say to offend the culture. She claims that you can only offend other cultures that you're not actually a part of. Is this true? Or should Kwame tell her he is offended by her notion that you can't offend people of the same culture?
I mean, that's Aziza's belief, and, everyone has the right to believe what they want.
A lot of people believe this, though.
Of course. This is essentially speaking to the idea of, I've heard and I've shared with you as well, that some people are of the conclusion that if you are black, you cannot be racist because racism is done against a subordinate power group of people, and black people who are not in control in this country cannot then effectuate some type of power control over people who are overcoming them. But that's not true. You can be racist and you can be biased and you can be prejudiced, and so it just depends on the lineage of words or incantations that one is using against other people. But you can always be offensive. You can be offensive to people in your culture. You can be offensive to anyone, because people can take offense from anything. So that's why technically that is not a true statement. And again, this is another scenario where somebody needs to be schooled. And she would go around living her life, and enough people will tell her business, and then she will learn if she's willing to change her ways or if she wants to keep getting schooled. And hopefully that doesn't turn into a violent lesson. Some people get a little violent in their lessons.
That's the issue. Yeah, let's not bring violence into this.
It's America, baby.
Come on now, that's definitely not right. Don't make violence just because you're offended. Let's get it together.
Didn't you like that movie what is it, The History of X or X?
American History
X?
Yeah.
Isn't that based on American, violence culture in this?
Well, it's a history of violence in America, and pervasive to
America's
this day.
very violent. It started very violently.
Yeah, but we need to progress from that, and we got to learn that just because you're offended...
300 years, you said. 300 years.
Well, yeah, I said give it about 300 years, and we'll revisit this topic, and we'll find out that America's finally grown from this idiocy of violence.
Oh, I love that you said we'll revisit it. So our brains are going to go into the robot world, right? And then
I'm already uploading my mind to the hive. I don't know about you.
So you're in the cloud. Nice.
No, not yet, but I'm getting there So I'm going to put you in there too, and we can discuss this with the WokeNFree Nation, the
300
later
years from now.
generations.
I love this. Yep.
I want them, yeah, because then we'll know what happened. We can revisit the topic finally, and it'll be a lot different.
No
300
more
years from
Matrix for you, sir. No more. You're acting
right.
too crazy. Or
I'm
you're
not...
watching that Transcendent movie with Johnny Depp.
Hey, don't do any spoiler alerts though or anything. But people can see Transcendence. I don't know. Is that a spoiler if that's the theme of the movie?
I mean, they showed in the trailer.
Oh, okay. I guess
they
it's fine,
showed him
then.
going into the computers, and he was like,
all right. So I guess that's fine to say, yeah. But that's
about all that I've seen of it. So I haven't seen the film.
Oh, lady. You should have seen it.
Oh, lady.
Yeah.
Oh, lady.
But I had to bring this up because we didn't touch on this in the episode, but a lot of people in this country feel that we're too easily offended. So I just had to bring that up.
As people or black people?
Just in general, that liberals are very offended. They just get super offended by stuff.
I think,
especially liberals are
I think
attacked.
that comment is usually thrown out when someone is trying to avoid having an emotional conversation around terms or concepts that they are uncomfortable with. Because even if, quote unquote, that is true, people are entitled to feel what they feel. And so you deal with it and you talk it out and learn and explore. Maybe people are sensitive.
But what if somebody's offended by you wearing like a fluffy sweater? Like that, I mean,
is it made out of animals? I mean, is it like...
It has a unicorn on it, and they're like, that doesn't exist, and it makes me very anxious when I see things that don't exist. Like, people have these things that they... I'm just giving an example, but I'm saying...
I understand.
Sometimes people are offended by things where it's like, come on, I'm just trying to live.
So,
or
again...
It's just a joke.
What is our stance on offense? Are people not entitled to be offended at what they want to be offended or not?
No, of course not.
Oh, so you limit how we as people can be offended.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
You understand how that sentence sounds?
But think of it in practice, because I just told you an example. So you want people going around like being offended by what people wear?
No, but listen, because
your clothes offend me.
Work out that scenario. So okay, I'm wearing the fluffy hoodie with the unicorn, and someone is offended, and I'm gonna continue on with my life.
Okay, that's fine.
You're quite entitled to be offended. You can continue.
Oh, okay, good.
But I'm gonna go and live my life and buy a unicorn hoodie.
Well, that's the key. As long as you're okay to still do your stuff, then it's fine.
No. So what people misunderstand is that just because you're offending someone does not mean you need to curtail your life.
Yeah,
because you can never make everyone happy. That's a premise of life, guys. If you don't know this, you cannot make everyone happy because someone will be offended and someone will be hurt. That is I mean, you can pray for them. You can absolutely
offend somebody pretty easily.
You can offend
by
ghosts.
Breathing.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
because sometimes your fashion offends people. Like I said,
absolutely.
They said, "Oh, how dare they wear that?"
And then you say, "Good."
It's after Labor Day. Are you kidding me?
You know what it comes down to? Create or hate, right? Like, stop being a hater, guys. Like, you need to live your life, and you can, if you want to be offended, be offended. But people are entitled to live their lives.
But it's
different when you're offending, and then when you're harming, or when you're actively trying to disrespect. You know, things like that.
Yeah. See,
then it's a deeper conversation.
There's other things where people are actually trying to go out of their way to hurt the other.
You know, but when someone is like,
or being or making like stereotypical.
Yeah, when you're
comments.
Denying people a job opportunity.
What about even the right to vote? What about stopping them from getting to the polls?
Exactly. Hey guys, hope you voted. Awesome. Make sure you voted your voice, as they say, right?
I hope your voices were heard. That's all we can hope for.
But people have also need to learn to live with offense. So I mean, I would feel sorry for that person who's anxious, but I'm sorry. I love unicorns, so it's got to be what it's got to be. I mean,
so you at least agree there's certain things where just because somebody's offended, they're gonna have to suck it up and figure it out.
There's some people who are offended by like Mrs. Doubtfire, right? So people can be offended by anything: how dark a room is, what color nail polish you're wearing, how you styled your hair,
Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Holidays. I mean, there's a million and a billion and a trillion reasons why someone could be offended. So you can live your life and you can live the WokeNFree way, and that's about all you can do. So we are at that time again. It is coming to the end of our 62nd episode of WokeNFree.
Nice.
This was quite the episode, talking all about cultures and how they respect themselves. And I ask the question each and every time, will I leave you hanging for what our next episode will be about? Drum roll, please.
On our next episode, we will be talking about what are phrases everyone should know. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow along in the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you want to be a guest on the show, please submit a topic for an upcoming episode and share how you feel on our Contact Us page. That's going to be at WokeNFree.com. That's WokeNFree.com. And if you want to hit us up on social media just to chat or get to know us more, you can easily find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Just go to WokeNFree.com. All our social media handles are there, guys.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokeNFree is more than a podcast, it is a way of life. Until next time.